Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So, if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read through one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and to give a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, a little bit of good times, so stick around. So if you remember last episode, we read Alma chapter 58, which is the end of Helaman's epistle to Captain Moroni, and he details how he was able to fully kick out all the Lamanites from his area of the land by taking the city Manti, and in the process kind of freaking out all the surrounding Lamanites. There was a lot of coincidences that happened, a lot of miracles, and it's a good read, so go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, I think without further ado, let's return to Captain Moroni in Alma chapter 59. Now it came to pass in the 30th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, after Moroni had received and had read Helaman's epistle, he was exceedingly rejoiced because of the welfare, yea, the exceeding success which Helaman had had in obtaining those lands which were lost. Yea, and he did make it known unto all his people in the land round about in that part where he was, that they might rejoice also. And it came to pass that he immediately sent an epistle to Pahoran, desiring that he should cause men to be gathered together to strengthen Helaman, or the armies of Helaman, insomuch that he might with ease maintain that part of the land which he had been so miraculously prospered in regaining. So Moroni has read the epistle from Helaman, and he's excited. He's like, wow, Helaman has gotten back all these cities, they've kicked out the Lamanites, and they've succeeded so thoroughly. This is amazing. And this is one of the situations in the Book of Mormon where we read a record that the people in the Book of Mormon are also reading, and so we get to read what they react to. We get to read their reaction to the same thing that we just read. It feels very meta. Like this happened back in the Book of Mosiah with the record of Zeniff's people when they merged with the people in Zarahemla, and it was freaking awesome. And also there's a section of Mosiah where I believe it is King Mosiah reads the 24 Jaredite plates, which is, fun fact, the Book of Ether. Although I'm sure the Book of Ether has been pared down from the original full 24 plates, but it's the same story. And so it's interesting where we've read their reaction to that record, but we haven't quite gotten to it yet. Anyways, this is just kind of a fun moment in the Book of Mormon. I love it when it gets meta like this. It's very exciting. Sorry. Anyways. And another thing that Moroni does in this section is, if you remember a couple chapters ago in Helaman's epistle, Helaman mentions how they asked Zarahemla, the capital city, for more armies, and they didn't send them. They only sent 2,000 people, which Helaman and Moroni both know Zarahemla has a lot of armies and a lot of weapons and a lot of food. And Zarahemla sent barely any to Helaman. And so Helaman, in his own epistle, was like, well, we don't know why this happened. We're not sure. Maybe there's something going on. But Moroni, he also sends a letter to Zarahemla being like, hey, give Helaman armies. Like, please, he needs it to maintain the cities that he's taken back. He's been so successful, but he can't be forever. They're stretched thin over there. And so he's kind of adding his voice to Helaman's, to Zarahemla, to try and get them to respond. So anyways, we'll see how that goes, shall we? And it came to pass, when Moroni had sent this epistle to the land of Zarahemla, he began again to lay a plan that he might obtain the remainder of those possessions and cities which the Lamanites had taken from them. And it came to pass that while Moroni was thus making preparations to go against the Lamanites to battle, behold, the people of Nephihah, who were gathered together from the city of Moroni and the city of Lehi and the city of Morianton, were attacked by the Lamanites. Yea, even those who had been compelled to flee from the land of Manti and from the land round about had come over and joined the Lamanites in this part of the land. And thus being exceedingly numerous, yea, and receiving strength from day to day, by the command of Amram, they came forth against the people of Nephihah, and they did begin to slay them with an exceedingly great slaughter. And their armies were so numerous that the remainder of the people of Nephihah were obliged to flee before them, and they came even and joined the army of Moroni. So, a Nephite city just fell. Nephihah is now in the hands of the Lamanites. And interestingly enough, part of what made the Lamanites so powerful and suddenly powerful enough to take back the city is because the people that fled from the region around Manti, which is where Helaman is, they came and joined the Lamanites in this area. And so it's actually very interesting that the areas that Helaman is talking about in his letter and the areas that Moroni is actually in are kind of connected in that way. Helaman kind of chased the Lamanites away towards Moroni. It kind of makes it feel like this really is a whole expanded world, right? It's all interconnected. And I love it when things connect like this. Like the epistle of Helaman and Moroni's record, they feel like separate records entirely. But they aren't. And this is a little reminder that, again, this is an expanded world, you know? Things happen and those actions affect other things. And I don't know. It's a small detail, but I love it when you can kind of see a little bit of the domino effect in this. Because Helaman was so successful in his area, the Lamanites fled and made Moroni's area more endangered and therefore less successful because there were more Lamanites to fight. So, interesting. Anyways, let's see what Moroni does with that fallen city. And now, as Moroni had supposed that there should be men sent to the city of Nephihah to the assistance of the people to maintain that city, and knowing that it was easier to keep the city from falling into the hands of the Lamanites than to retake it from them, he supposed that they would easily maintain that city. Therefore, he retained all his force to maintain those places which he had recovered. And now when Moroni saw that the city of Nephihah was lost, he was exceedingly sorrowful, and began to doubt because of the wickedness of the people, whether they should not fall into the hands of their brethren. Now this was the case with all his chief captains. They doubted and marveled also because of the wickedness of the people, and this because of the success of the Lamanites over them. And it came to pass that Moroni was angry with the government because of their indifference concerning the freedom of their country. So that last verse, where it just explains how Moroni is angry at the government, is very heavy foreshadowing for next chapter, which I'm excited to read you the angry letter that Moroni sends them. It's very strongly worded. Anyways, a couple things I want to point out about the last section of this chapter. Moroni mentions in verse 9 that before he learns that Nephihah is properly taken over by Lamanites, he's like, hey, we should send people over there to maintain that city because, and this is the point, maintaining is better than having to retake from the Lamanites. Which, that principle of never giving Satan ground to begin with, because it's much easier to keep the ground that you already have than to take it back from Satan, that's a very applicable principle. And now, that is not to say that if you have given ground to Satan, if you've given away some of your agency to him, then you can't take it back. Obviously, you can. This is why we have the atonement. This is why we are forgiven. This is why there is grace. But it is easier to never give up that ground in the first place. You can take this back to the allegory that a Nephite city that is fortified represents kind of the standards that we hold. If you never leave your walls, if you never let go of your standards, then you're not going to get taken over, at least as easily. So anyways, a very interesting little principle to be found in that verse. I also want to talk about how in verse 11, Moroni says, he began to doubt because of the wickedness of the people, whether or not they should fall into the hands of their brethren. So this verse means that Moroni believes that righteousness was what was saving them from the Lamanites. Which, I believe he's right. There are two aspects to defense in this war, for the Nephites at least. The physical defenses that they have around their fortified cities, and the spiritual defenses, how righteous the people in that city are. Because in scripture, it's pretty obvious that if a city is full of wicked people, God is a little bit more willing to destroy it. But having righteous people in it strengthens it and makes God less willing to allow it to be taken over. And so that is why Moroni is worried, because people are getting wicked, people are doubting God and losing faith. And what's interesting is it seems to be kind of a spiral, where at some point, presumably, the Lamanites kind of got a foothold in their area and kind of made a little bit of progress militarily. And then the Nephites were like, oh no, and they kind of freaked out, and maybe they lost a little bit of their faith. Maybe they began to doubt a little bit that God really did have them covered. And then because of that, the Lamanites gained more ground, and they freaked out more and doubted more. And then it becomes this downward spiral. So anyways, very interesting, and I think that's something that can apply to us. If we make sure to trust in God despite things that don't quite go our way, then I think that's a powerful thing. So anyways, a very interesting chapter. This is definitely one of those transitional, reactional chapters in the Book of Mormon where nothing big happens in it, but it's kind of a reaction to the previous chapter and a preparing for the next chapter, because it starts with Moroni reacting to the previous chapter, reacting to the epistle from Helaman, and it ends by saying that Moroni is angry at the government. And then, of course, the next chapter is his letter to the government. And so it's definitely a transitional chapter, and yet, as I just mentioned, there are definitely applicable principles to be found. Man, diamonds in the rough, right? So the standout verse is going to be verse 2, which says, Yea, and he did make it known unto all his people, in all the land round about in that part where he was, that they might rejoice also. So this is Moroni rejoicing at the news that Helaman has been so successful in his region. And instead of just privately being like, dang, that's pretty cool, I'm happy for him, he tells everybody. He noises it abroad so that everyone can also rejoice. And this impulse of sharing light, sharing happiness, is I think, really good, Moroni got good news that made him really happy, and so instead of just, being excited about it personally, he told everyone that he cared about. He was like, guys, this is a win, this is exciting, and he spread joy. And this reminds me of in Lehi's vision, when he was standing at the tree of life and he tasted the fruit and he was like, oh my goodness, this is life-changing. And his first thought is to beckon his family closer to him, because he wanted his family to partake of that fruit also. Now, did they listen? That's a different story. But that same impulse was there. He found light and he wanted to share it. Whether that light is just a tidbit of good news or it's something that made you feel the Spirit and made you feel God in your life. That's a good impulse to have. Share light in your life. Make known your rejoices and your successes. I think that's a beautiful way to connect with those around you. Anyways, that is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. It's definitely a short one. We haven't had a short chapter in a while. The war chapters are pretty chunky, but anyways, I hope you appreciated it. But yeah, there's just a few links down in the show notes that I want to let you know about. The first one is a let me know what you learned link, so if you want to shoot me a message and chat about something Book of Mormon related, you can go ahead and do that, or you can DM me on Instagram. Next, there are some links to access a digital copy of the Book of Mormon, so if you want to read along, or find a chapter, or even create a study plan, you can go ahead and click those down below. Next, there's a quick support the show link, so if you want to shoot me a few dollars and support what I do, I would appreciate that. Next, we are on YouTube, so if you're not already watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and find the podcast there twice a week, just as it is everywhere else. And also, you'll find extra content, extra YouTube shorts. It's very fun. Finally, we are on Instagram, so if you want to find me where I'm the most active, you can follow me there. I post reels, I post stories and trivia and updates. And yeah, it is a good time, so I'll see you there. That's all I've got for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.